Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm Sanchari Basu Chaudhary, fellow at the India Center. As you may know, the India Center organizes a monthly webinar that contributes to the study on the Indian knowledge systems. Today, we have a very special speaker with us. And to introduce her, I'd like to invite Director of the India Center, Professor Pankaj Jain.
I'm very happy. All my students are here. Professor Veena Howard is here all the way from California. I met her more than 2 decades back at a conference when she was talking about Gandhi, and it was just so fascinating. And ever since we have been in touch, and she's here on Fulbright Fellowship, which is one of the topmost scholarship fellowship given to all Indian citizens as well as US citizens to study each other's cultures and from others' perspectives. So all of you should also apply for Fulbright, taking inspiration from her. I also got it from more than a decade back. We should all apply for that. And today she will speak on this fascinating topic, innovative topic. Very rarely this has been studied. Jain women from asceticism to householders. Very wide-ranging and very interesting topic. And this is her brief bio I'm going to read, and then I'll invite her. Professor Veena Howard, PhD, is Professor of Asian Religious Traditions in the Department of Philosophy at California State University, Fresno. She is a recipient of the Fulbright Nehru Grant 2024-25. She also holds the endowed chair in Jain and Hindu Dharma and serves as the director of the M.K. Gandhi Center, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi Center, Inner Peace and Sarvodaya. Her publications include the books Gandhi's Global Legacy, Lexington, the Bloomsbury Research Handbook of Indian Philosophy and Gender, Bloomsbury, Dharma in India, Dharma Traditions in India, I'm shortening a little bit, from IB Tauris, which is now Bloomsbury also. Gandhi's Ascetic Activism, SUNY Press. She has also authored over 3 dozen peer-reviewed articles, long list, I'm going to skip a little bit, and Oxford Bibliography article on Gandhi as well, and on, long list. I'm skipping a little bit. She's a frequent speaker at national and international conferences. She has served on many boards, including the Board of Trustees of the Parliament of the World's Religions, the same parliament where Swami Vivekananda spoke in 1893, that same parliament. And then Howard also received a Fulbright, also a TEDx speaker, and we welcome her all the way from California, first time at Flame. Please.
Thank you, Professor Pankaj Jain, and thank you, Professor Sanchari Basu, and thank you all for coming to Professor Jain's class and today listening to me. I'm very happy to be here at Flame University. Can we do the PowerPoint? I think it's good. Because, and also in this Vikram Sarabhai auditorium, because my Fulbright grant focuses on Mradula Sarabhai's work. So do you know who Mradula Sarabhai was? She was the sister of Vikram Sarabhai. Not many people know. So I think so my study has been on Gandhi, Dharma traditions, Jain tradition, Hindu tradition, Gandhian ideas, Gandhian nonviolence. I gave a talk last night on Gandhi's nonviolence or Jain nonviolence, ahimsa, and its broader applications. So there were 57 people on Zoom last night when I gave a talk, but I love to see students. They were all maybe 30 plus, or here is great too. I'm best in the classroom, so it's great to have, but we don't have auditoriums like this at Fresno State. We just crammed up in a small classroom and we study together. So I think I would like you to pay attention, ask good questions afterwards. And no question is a bad question. So be ready about that. And it will help me to refine my research also. So as you know about, I don't see the PowerPoint still, and I don't have a clicker. Do we have a clicker?
Clicker, yeah.
Or something too?
Okay, yeah. Next.
नहीं मैं करूँगी आप All right, so whenever we talk about Gandhi and whenever we talk about his work and we talk about in women in general or the world in general, we don't see women's voices, women's faces, women's names in many places. We lot of, by far, if you see even the list of names, there'll be far more men than women. So it doesn't mean that women didn't participate in India's struggle. So thank you so much. So whenever we talk about Gandhi, we always have the names and statues of men. Even our Peace Garden at Fresno State, we have Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., Cesar Chavez, Nelson Mandela, and Jane Addams. So now the women are saying if we have another monument, we should have to women. So I think it really is interesting. And when Professor Jain and I were talking about the topic for this conversation, and when we see from householders to ascetics, and then there is something is missing in that equation, which is the two binaries that either you are a ascetic woman or you're a householder. But there is another path that I am exploring. So that's the first one, modern Jain activists. And I'm working on currently women activists select in Gandhi's movement who are not very well recognized. People know about Sarojini Naidu and a couple of others, but they don't really talk about women. So as my female students I teach, or men too, it's not about gender, male-female issue. It's about the human issue that we have to really bring forward whoever has contributed, regardless of their gender and sex. So that's my field is I'm not creating any divide, but I want to unite and bring forward the knowledge system, like Indian knowledge systems. We need to bring the women's voices and their activism as well. So when we do a Google search, and I just did that, and I asked my students to do, just say Jain women in images, Google images. So what it comes forward. You see either Jain women are getting married, or they're ascetics, or they're sadhvis. They're not in between anything. Either they are seen as sadhvis, or they're seen as get married and householders. And this is yesterday's image, so it's not an old image. So even today, so I hope that after my research, that images will change. And we'll have a different images added to it, not subtracted, but added to that image palette. So we had Women's Day 2025. So I'm in India after, it's been about 35 years when I left the country as a student. And then I come back usually just for a couple of weeks to be with my family. But I have not reconnected with India the way I'm doing now. So Women Day happen here, and I'm always involved at CSU Fresno whenever we celebrate Women's Day. But here I got a couple of emails from Jain friends. And the names, what they say, the Indian and the Jain women have been very, very important part of the Jain tradition. So the first name, this is directly taken from an email that I received. So it's not my work. I just want to, and I'll tell you where I get it from. So Saraswati, the first thing is when comes a woman who is elevated, goddess Saraswati. Fascinating to see. Not a human woman, but the goddess. And then Maru Devi, who is the mother of the first Tirthankara, Rishabh. And then Brahmi and Sundari, who are the daughters of, you can take notes if you want to for your study. She was the two daughters. And it is said that Brahmi Lipi comes from the Brahmi lady, and Sundari also really contributed to art and culture. And Tirthankara Malinath. So it's believed that the 19th Tirthankara was a woman, although the Gambara Jains do not agree with that, right? There is a conversation that all 24 Tirthankars were men, or one of them was a woman. So there is not a consensus within Jain tradition. That's why I think when we take about Jainism, what Jainism we are talking about, there is a various strands. And then Gyanini Gyanmati Mataji, a living Digambar Jain, and that's very well known. And Acharya Chandanaji, a living Shitambara nun, as we were talking about Professor Sharma as well. So these are on the left side are the women who were mythical. I call mythical, not necessarily not true, but we cannot trace them in history, so to speak. Right? The myth is, I'm not using as a term the Western world used, not true. I'm using the sacred stories. And those are the stories that we inherit, and they inform our cultural religious frameworks. But Gyanmati Mata and Acharya Chandanaji are the real figures. And I met Acharya Chandanaji just last week, and I have spoken with her a couple of times. Now on the right, you see another set of women. I don't know whether I will ask you how many of you have heard those names. And those are, scholars and industrialists and classical dancers and executive and so on. How many of you heard those names of those women? Anybody? Raise your hands. No one, right? Right? And Anju? Because we don't know, because we are not in a way that they're not considered. So the whole point is that why aren't they in the images, right? It's not that we all should hear about everything, because it's very difficult for us to. I'm sure you ever heard about Saraswati, right? Everybody have heard about Saraswati, goddess Saraswati, because pan-Indian goddess of learning, goddess of wisdom. But the other women, and also their names are not Jain in the end, many of them. And that's what a question I want to raise, that it doesn't mean that we say I'm a Jain because I have a last name is Jain, or sometimes people are culturally Jain, sometimes they're born in Jain family and not necessarily practicing in a way other Jain. So you have to be really careful how we even say who is a Jain and who is not. But as long as they're born in a family, then we can say that they are Jain. So how the debate has been in academia, generally, there is a women renouncers. This Manisha Sethi's book focuses on existing sociological theories of renunciation and tests the feminist concepts of agency and autonomy by investigating the culturally coded roles ascribing to women in Jainism. It's very important to point the words. It's not my words, it's from her book blurb, culturally coded roles. What are the culturally coded roles are, generally speaking? What are the culturally coded? Anybody, quick. What is a culturally coded role? Sundar? Who are I? You can't hear in the back? Speak up. Yes, no. Huh? One more time. Householders and ascetics. So can you hear me? Just let's make sure. Aapko sunai de raha hai piche, piche, piche? Okay, I can come closer, to the mic. Yeah, so I think when they say culturally coded, they're just really thinking about the two strands bifurcated the escaping the world, women renouncers, as we see Acharya Chandanaji, and the people like normal people, householders that who are living in family and have children. What is the third role that we'll see? That is that possible to have a third role as well? And then you have heroic wives models, ritual stories and virtues of wifehood. That's another book that talks about well-known Jain sati narratives recorded in both formal ritual contexts and formal retellings. And it's also as read aloud from printed versions. So the women is the really role is to be devoted wife, is sati, a chaste woman dedicated to one husband, and then come the powers through that. It's not like simply you're giving up to be dedication to your husband. You get a lot of siddhis, a lot of powers by being a devoted wife. So it's a virtue is not empty. Some people say in the West, when I teach, you go, why should we do for our husbands that? Well, they should do for us too. But the tradition shows that it doesn't mean he should do or we should do. It's the women itself gains a lot of virtuous merit when they are a dedicated mother and virtuous wife. So then there is a lot of celebrations of the mother of Tirthankaras. So Tirthankara mothers are worshipped even by the highest gods and are praised, right? And the importance of their qualities, thanks to the power of their chastity, some of them change fire into water, water into earth, vultures into jackals, serpents into rope, poison into nectar. Look at the powers they're getting. With you just why they're powerful, because they live a very pure, chaste life. And one may say that it is mythological, it's not real, it is a trope to control women, it is a trope to all kinds of people say things. Academics, scholars can debate these ideas, but the tradition is saying that the power lies in being in the right, virtuous mindset and right virtuous practice. The tradition gives power to these. So we can't undermine or we have to look at into in their own context, how they're getting powers. And then you said the pictures, the way they are shown is the soul of Lord Mahavir Swami Bhagwan was conceived by Devananda. I mean, look at the way she is portrayed in a pictures on all kinds of very beautiful dreams she has, and she is really powerful woman, holy woman, because she's birthing this 24th Tirthankara. So she is considered very holy and very revered in the tradition. So it's not that they don't have status, but it's a different kind between the two parameters. Either and not any householder wife, they're supposed to be like sati, the chaste wife, the dedicated wife, and the one who is, and the mother, and all pan-Indian, Hindu, Buddhist, Jain, and to even Sikh traditions that you see, the motherhood is celebrated. Motherhood is a very, very important idea that women are respected because they are birthing a whole life. They are birthing our future generations. So when we see the recent, so this also I got from Sadhvi or Acharya Chandanaji's group. They sent me this, how Jain women got the Padma Bhushan or Padma Shri awards. Can we play that? Is possible? Can we have the sound, please? This needs to be, go back. Yeah, here is the video recording. Just watch it. Just a minute. So what does the caption says? that this shows that Jain women can attain the heights of accomplishment. Why do we need that title? Why do we need that caption? I'll ask you afterwards. Why can't they? My question is, why can't they? I never thought they can't. So why do we have to say that Jain women can attain that? So it means there is some kind of misunderstanding. They're responding to the scholarly texts which say householder women to stay home and cook for others, or they can be sadhvis and the ascetics. So they're responding to, it's not, I'm not questioning why they're doing it. They are doing it because the stereotype of Jain women is either householder, and what's householder seen? Just roti pakao, eat food and cook food and raise your children, which is not a bad thing, which is a good thing to do, I think. It's a very important task of both men and women, not just women. But also, why can't they be this? But again, they're addressing to the stereotypes. And this just also I got on the Women's Day also. So these two research is brand new that I am going to draw in my paper. Other thing that I found during my research, last month I was in Jaipur and I was looking at women activists and where are the Jain women activists might be. So I came across this book called Swatantrata Sangram Mein Jain. And this, we don't know whether Jains participated in Swatantrata Sangram or the India's independence. A lot of time we don't hear their names because we think, oh, they are vegetarians, they are, they have certain restrictions. How can they go to jail? Many of these Jains went to jails and there are hundreds of names, hundreds, not 100, many hundreds. And they followed their Jain diet, they followed their Jain virtues in jail. For a year, they stayed in jail and they kept up with they didn't compromise. And there are some women as well, very few, maybe 4 or 5, but there are Jain women as well. And I'm going to talk to you about Jain women too. So this is the new, I don't think I have seen this anywhere so far in my research. When we do literature review, we do look at different ways that Jain women are being portrayed. The Jain women activists are not, yes, we see the women coming activists when the Santara, restriction or the court ruling, then we saw men and women coming out. But there was not singling out that women were doing activism. So there was a woman called Maniben Chandulal Nanavati. And that was not in the images anywhere. That was not the name of the 10 women. That was not the name in the women that I showed from the names of that. So she was from 1905 to 2000. She was called the Srimati Maniben Nanavati. Spinning Wheel is a textbook of my life. She was Gandhian associate. If you see, she is with Gandhi. And she was a close associate of Gandhiji. During her lifetime, she religiously followed and practiced the Gandhian principles of honesty, simplicity, dignity of labor, and the need to give a meaningful and practical education to students. She was really for students' cause that students should be given, especially female students should be given education. She was a promoter of khadi, an ardent spinner. She loved spinning. And all these women are coming from very affluent families, mind that. They're leaving their comforts, nice clothes, silk clothes, the fancy clothes. They're coming and to join the movement. She was called the Khadi Mata because she was so much into the. I had no idea until 3 weeks ago about this. So it's a brand new research. So please, I want to write a book on it, or at least a chapter. So I hope, I'm able to before anybody takes this idea, because it's such a new research, right? Then you want to make sure that it goes published. And then she was a fearless feminist. We're talking about 1930, 1925, when in America, women didn't have a right to vote. Think about that. America, women got the right to vote in 1918, 1919. So these women are, they're trailblazers. And they are going forward to bring the care for women and all people. She walked the talk with quiet tenacity, freedom, and and feminists combine as second breath within her. Khadi was second skin. She draped the fabric fervently, yet frugally. I love the language that, she loved the fabric of Khadi. Why, how she did both? He said, convinced that a pair of clothes was enough. Now we can see here Gandhi in it, right? Simplicity and the Jain idea of asceticism and simplicity, not taking too much, aparigraha, right? You see this idea of aparigraha in it. But no, we need to study, we need to make a connection, not just simply, oh, she was Gandhian. No, what is she doing? She might be drawing on her own tradition and looking at aparigraha, right? Non-possession. Why do I need more clothes when I have 2 pairs of clothes? And then what she said, Maniben Chandulal Nanavati possessed 2 sets, a couple more of white khadi saris were added only because of the monsoon. Damp did not allow drying in the time for the next day. As you know, I don't know whether I tried this drying my clothes and I wash them here, and they take a while because either so humid in the hotel or so damp. It's not easy. It's not a dry air. So very practical, very, very thoughtful, very practical. An empowered woman in times when the term was still an unheard one, she dedicated a life to promote khadi that helps hundreds of women attain economic independence, not simply for just a statement that I'm doing Swadeshi, but she saw that women didn't have enough clothes. So if you can spin your own clothes, it'll be cool to spin our own clothes and wear them, right? Nowadays, they're so expensive if you wear a good khadi. But then you spin your own clothes, sew your own clothes and wear them, because then you don't have to be dependent on anyone. So then she is called, they still exist, Maniben Nanavati Women's College. This is a women's college, and I think it's in Gujarat. Dream Child. So like I said, I'm doing research, just very raw, very recent research. So I may not have answers to all the questions. And these 2 women, Kanti Ben and Sumiti Ben Seth, they created this college. Was started as a Bhagni Seva Mandir Kumarika Sri Mandal, and then now into a Nanavati. It's a women's college. And Gandhi himself had laid the stone to this school, and it's considered a university is considered, or the college is considered, has a high rankings. It continues to be dedicated to a good education for both the men and women. So you can read that. Okay, so UGC sponsored Gandhian Study Center at Nanavati Women's College. So they have a Gandhian Center which started in 2010. I hope I get to visit it. And it's a platform dedicated to promoting the timeless teachings of Mahatma Gandhi. By integrating the principles of truth, nonviolence, and social equality into academia, the center fosters a deep understanding of his philosophy among students and researchers. Established under the University Grants Commission, UGC scheme of epoch-making social thinkers of India, the center has become a significant hub for Gandhi studies. So it's Mumbai, so not in, so this Nanavati University College is in Mumbai. There is another woman called Leelavati Munshi, and I'm not going to ask whether you know or not her name because I didn't know her name. So how can we? So she was from 1899 to 1978. She was an activist politician, was born in a Gujarati Jain family. She participated in India's independence movement and Gandhi's Salt Satyagraha, was an Indian politician and Gujarati essayist. She wrote a lot of essays, and she was a member of the Bombay Legislative Assembly from 1937 to 1946, where women were just getting the right to vote in the United States, and she was serving in the assembly. So she wrote many essays and also sketched. I mean, think about these women back then. They are doing, my mother had, who was probably contemporary or she was a little younger, had 5th grade education. She didn't have a right to go to school. And at that time, they are forging really trailblazers for the women's cause and human cause. So in 1950, she founded the Society for the Prevention of Unhealthy Trends in Motion Pictures in Mumbai. Think about 1950s. What were the unhealthy trends? Talk about now unhealthy trends. Now all bets are off, right? There is an open world. You can have anything out there. Back then, maybe it was not even kissing allowed on the cinema. And then she's saying that unhealthy trends because she was worried about the cultural, shifts and cultural change. And she moved a resolution to prohibit screening of undesirable films and obscene scenes, which was adopted by the House following with the government and amended the law. So I think it's very fascinating that she was really concerned about how the young minds and our people are not indoctrinated into those ideas which were not Indian sound according to Indian culture. So now I'm going to go into the Ambalal Sarabhai family, Gujarat and Indian independence movement. I don't know whether you know that we are here in this room, this auditorium is Vikram Sarabhai, who was a son of Ambalal Sarabhai. Yes, you said, oh, right? Didn't know. And we don't know that I think your directors should all come here. I'm going to give the lesson on Vikram Sarabhai and the family. And the women in the family are so strong and so powerful. They're so activists, they're dancers, they're architects. It's fascinating to watch that, that family who was associated with Gandhi from very early on. So I'm going to speak about here only two women. So Ansuya Sarabhai was a sister of Ambalal Sarabhai. And Sarla Devi Sarabhai was his wife. And Mradula Sarabhai was his daughter. So there are many Sarabhai family, like Mrinalini Sarabhai, Mallika Sarabhai, Gira Sarabhai. They were all very accomplished women. But I can't do all in a 45, 50 minutes. So I'm going to focus a little bit on Ansuya Sarabhai as a key figure in the Ahmedabad Textile Labor Association. Gandhi was her mentor. Sarla Devi Sarabhai was known for philanthropic activities. She was close to Gandhi and she started wearing, they were in England, they were wearing these fancy clothes, they were dressed in Western outfits, they were hanging out with all these great celebrities and they slowly began to change. And they were very khadi. When you see the later pictures, they're very, very simple. They're really following, and Gandhi came to their home and Gandhi held their children, and they held their babies. It's just really fun to read. This all, like I said, it's all new research that I haven't analyzed the whole data yet. And then, of course, Mradula Sarabhai, who fought for not only India's freedom, but her dedication to women's cause, especially empowering them, making sure they get independent. Think about independent. Now look at how many women are in this auditorium, a lot of them. And we should really be thankful to these women who were trailblazers that we are. When I was telling this morning, because of them, I'm here. Because of them, we can be standing here, not without their efforts. So just a little bit about Ambalal Sarabhai. So it's a family of Jains, but they are not sort of following in a way the title, I'm a Jain. They're living in Jain tradition, but the Jains, some community members were not happy by his decisions. It was very progressive. He went to England. They are, really affluent family. He was very devoted person, but not just like a religious way, more like a culturally religious. And what happened, you need to know this story. So Gandhi admitted a family from the untouchable class to the ashram in 1915. So brand new ashram. I visited there in February, first time, Kochrav ashram. So I have now sort of an idea when I talk about it. And there was untouchable colonies. They're still there, or what you call marginalized people. Ahmedabad, outside. No, this is different. So this was not built by Gandhi. This was was a state given by some prominent, I think it was a Jain individual from the Ahmedabad. And he stayed for only a year and a half or 2 years, and then he moved to Sabarmati Ashram when it was built. It's all new information, Professor Pankaj Jain. It's all I'm learning too, as I'm going, as on the ground. So it's fascinating. So I read about this story a long time ago. I didn't know where it was. And now I went to Kuchravashram and I saw what must have happened. So there was a rich family. They withdraw their funding for the ashram. Ashram cost a lot of money. So we think about power of money and importance of money. Just look at this university. It's gorgeous. This is beautiful campus, right? But comes with artha, the wealth, right? You can't just make this beautiful campus. It needs funds, right? So Gandhi needed funds, even though he himself lived a very simple life. He needed funds for the cause. You have to eat, you have to run the cause. So what happens then? Ambalal did not know him. So now we're talking about 1915, right? And he shows up in a car, and they met once in the Gujarat, something they were talking, some kind of meeting. He shows up and he places in my hand currency notes of value of 13,000. If you can do the math, in 1915, how much 13,000 rupees will be? It is many, many lakh of rupees. Yeah. Hand it to him, did not introduce him, and just leaves, rather than saying, put my name on it because I'm donating. And he had never expected this help. And what a novel way of rendering it. Gentleman had never before visited the ashram. So far as I can remember, I had met him only once. No visit, no inquiries, simply rendering help and going away. This was a unique experience to me. This helped defer the exodus of the untouchable quarter, and we now left quite safe for a year. So now I'm going to give you this idea of historical timeline. I love this history, connecting. 1915, Mradula Sarabhai is 11 years old. She's born in 1911. She's 4 years old. Her dad is doing this kind of charitable things to Gandhiji, right? So she is there on the ground. When we are 4-year-olds, we have plenty sense when dad does something like that. We all hear what is happening in the house. And then Gandhi comes to their home and visits them. And she sits around and talk about, and when she's a little girl, she's wearing khadi. She doesn't want to wear the Western clothes. So it's really fascinating to see. And Vikram Sarabhai is the younger, she's the youngest boy. I don't know if it's the youngest, and I think is way down the line. So how do we know whether it was a Jain family? Because we know them as a Sarabhai family. So as a scholar, I have to trace it, right? I can't just say because it said they're Jains. You have to have some kind of evidence. This is the evidence from this book by who were the tutor of these kids, called E.M. Standing, who was from Cambridge, educated, comes to Gujarat to teach these kids, Sarabhai kids, at home, Montessori education. Do you know what Montessori school is, right? They are coming back then, just starting the Montessori movement. And so E.M. Standing writes, as members of the Jain sect of Hinduism, so he doesn't know that, back then Hinduism was Indian culture, right? Not necessarily a religion. Both Mr. and Mrs. Sarabhai have a particular respect for all living things, animals even, down to the most humble. This is reason why they're all strict vegetarians. One of the servants has a daily duty of putting out some fresh milk for the ants. Giving milk to ants, that's the Jain practice of feeding even minuscule creatures, right? And his diaries or his letters are found way later. He was writing letters to his family, and they were sitting in his mother's attic. Now think about UK, and they found those letters and they brought it back to the Sarabhai family, and then they had help published. So it's a very fascinating how things work. So Ansuya Sarabhai, is also known as Mota Ben. Mota means big elder in Gujarat. So what she is, sister of prominent businessman Amba Sarabhai. She was a beloved friend of Mahatma Gandhi. She stood against her brother to fight for the labor strikes. It's very unique what she does. She was a pioneer of women's labor movement in India. She founded the Ahmedabad Textile Labor Association, Mazdoor Mahajan Sabha or Sangh, which is still alive, not as well, but it's still there. India's oldest union of textile workers. Think about that. A woman establishing the oldest workers' union. And so I think I just want to drive that home, the point that just really that we should pay attention to what is happening. Gandhi, whenever he wrote to her as a puja, Anusuya. He hardly ever wrote to anybody puja. He writes to her as puja and revered. And I saw their publications. It always has revered Anusuya Bhen. She was also really involved in establishing the Sabarmati Ashram. I just visited that as well last month, first time. So both first time I visited. So it was Gandhi who benefited from Amota Ben's groundwork and the trust she enjoyed among the mill workers of Ahmedabad. Because she was a private person, the world knows very little about her. So this is an exhibition happened 10 years ago by Ela Bhatt, and she's talking about we need to really highlight her work. Ambalal Sarabhai had textile mills, and they were very, very affluent. And here she is fighting for workers' rights. And her own words, what she says, one morning I was sitting outside in the compound, combing out the children's hair, when I saw a group of 15 workers passing as if in a trance. I called out to them, even though I did not know them well, and asked them, what is the matter? Why do you look so listless? They said, Behan, we have just finished 36 straight hours of work. We have worked for 2 nights and a day without a break, and now we are in our way home. These words filled me with horror, and this was no different from the kind of slavery women faced. What a powerful sentence. Looking at it and doing something, not just looking at it, experiencing it. Was she influenced by her Jain values? Was she, at that time, we don't know whether she met Gandhi or not. She is growing up or grew up in a very, very pious home where care for other was important. It's violence to not treat people right. And 36 hours, that's an exploitation way beyond. And a human can't function in this heat. So then they started. But she was defiant and determined. And Sarabhai also took part in the 1940 strike in Ahmedabad. In 1980, she was involved in the movement of weavers, where the workers were seeking a 50% increase in wages. Gandhi, who was Sarabhai's mentor, started a hunger strike. Gandhi writes in his autobiography about it. On behalf of the workers, while Sarabhai organized daily mass meetings for the workers, which Gandhi addressed. So Ansuya Sarabhai, sister of Ambalal Sarabhai, stood against Ambalal Sarabhai, against her brother, who was the mill owner. And you know how they end? With such a love. Somebody said, you should cut her out of the bill. She's single. And he goes, I'll never do that because she's my sister and she has right to the property. Think about, so not just the women, the men also, right? I'm not just, think about the Ambalal Sarabhai. I mean, he listened to her and he immediately, his hunger strike was called off and was settled. Compromise was reached. And I think these stories has to be highlighted of our history. So this is the new Indian Express article that Ela R. Bhatt wrote in 2013. They did an exhibit, The Forgotten Lady Revisited. It was last year on August 27 that the idea of showcasing an exhibition throwing light on the illustrious life and legacy of Ansuya Sarabhai. Now, this is my Fulbright research. So far was the really prelude to this. And it has to be part of the contextualizing Jain activist women. We cannot just talk about Madhula Sarabhai without contextualizing the whole discourse on Jain women, right? So I think this really study for the last, it's been only 3 months I've been here, and has really, I have talked to people. I spoke with Kartikeya Sarabhai, who was Vikram Sarabhai's son. I had an interview with him. I had the other interview with Sarut Sarabhai. I'm going to meet again, whoever I can in Ahmedabad and meet with them. They're very excited about this work, this book project or this writing. And so I need to get access to their archives, and I'm sure I will. So she, from 1911 to 1974, I would like you to pay attention to her demeanor in the photos is very different than other women. If you see Abha or Manu, when you see just a different way that she's, and then we'll talk about that. So available resources, they're not too much on her. How many of you had heard about Madhula Sarabhai? No one, right? And how many of you know Vikram Sarabhai? Everybody knows. We are sitting in the auditorium, right? So I think it's the idea that, so there's one book called Madhula Sarabhai, A Rebel, one by Aparna Basu, and Gandhi's Vision. There's another one, and this is all by one historian, and I can't meet her because she passed away now, and I won't be able to. So who was Madhula Sarabhai? Very quickly, one of the proudest women ever made by God, the most sneeringly contemptuous of cowardice and of safe playing. Madhula had more of a brave man in her than a woman. Gopal Krishna Gandhi. And I just met Gopal Krishna Gandhi in Chennai last week, and I interviewed him as well. He was so kind to give me an hour. That 1 hour was so lucid. The way he spoke, the way he explained to me about these women activists. Hanji, yes. Rajmohan Gandhi's brother. And so, yeah, and so think about this quote, what is going on this quote? You're my students right here today. Think about this quote, what is not right about this quote, or what is right about this quote? Quickly. Absolutely, what's your name? Amazing. So why she says that more of a brave man than a woman. So it's just really, I don't think it came out of less respect for her, but because we live in the patriarchal systems, right? And then showing the man is braver. And Gandhi would say the women are more brave, right? So it's very fascinating to see how, and look at her body, demeanor, how she stands. She doesn't stand like this, just like, okay, bring it on. Who are you here? They're and she is on the left is the Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, Afghanistani leader. All these leaders in the ashram, and here the riots between Hindu and Muslim. She's on the ground, and then she is, really taking this leadership role. What was the source of Madhula Sarabhai's strength? That was one of my questions in my research. Madhula conformed to many of Gandhi's views, but was much more radical in her perceptions regarding the role and status of women. She fought with Gandhi. She questioned Gandhi. She really brought him to consider that women should be in every committee. She did not want women to be mere followers, but decision makers. And this brought her into conflict with many nationalist leaders. There's interesting conversations among them. Including Gandhi. She wanted women to be strong, independent, and self-confident. So, I mean, she's again, timeline is very important for us to see. We're talking about 1930s, right? Right now, we talk about it's a different story. We're talking about 1930s, and we don't have social media. We don't have, people are not reading. Literacy rate is not very high. The girls' schools are not open. So always not think right now to this context. Look back in that times. Did her family's Jain tradition influence her in some way? That's my question. And she remained single. She never got married. And by choice, she writes about in her writings, and when Basu writes, she goes, I don't want to get bound by this whole thing. She wants to be free. She wants to do the work for the cause. And what is that? Is that she sadhvi or is she householder? What is she? So there is some space in between those two models, right? Householder and renouncer. So there is a third space that we don't talk about. And I think that will help. We can talk about Dr. Sharma, or going to be Dr. Sharma soon. So lived a very simple life, just like Ansuya Ben, just like Nanavati. Life of service, independent, fearless. So who is a fearless in a Jain tradition is Mahavira, or the moral is Veera, right? Strong, fearless. They're not afraid of snakes. They're not afraid of dacoits. They're fearless. So a mention of Madhula Sarabhai by historians. So very, very few historians here and there just have a paragraph or two about her. And she worked so much on the cause of women and India's independence movement. Oops. Okay, one of the Indians On the Indian side, the operation to recover abducted women after partition was led by Madhula Sarabhai and Rameshwari Nehru. Both came from aristocratic homes and both had sturdily nationalist credentials. Their work was encouraged and aided by Nehru himself, who took deep personal interest in the process. How many of you know that women were abducted after the India's partition? I even didn't know. I knew women died, but abducted, molested, abused, killed, that's a different story. And she was on the ground. She was right there, fearlessly helping them. So who is Madhula Sarabhai? The first child of Ambalal and Sarla Devi Sarabhai. Like I said, he was an affluent businessman. They're very financially sound. And I went to their Shahi Bagh home too. It's like royalty. That word is. I mean, the very, very, at the Calico Museum, they have just gorgeous streets. And, but she could have had a very easy life. She could have had, life of luxury. But what she chooses to, it's all her choice. And the parents are watching her choose these and they do not interrupt, let her do. Madhula Sarabhai was the eldest of the 8 children and she never got married, participated in various satyagraha campaigns, constructive work programs. She especially dedicated her entire life to the cause of uplifting minorities and women, the two. And minorities included not only untouchables and poor and neglected, but the Muslims as well. She met Mahatma Gandhi in her childhood, and she worked in the Bal Sena. What is Bal Sena? The children's monkey army. She enlisted herself in the monkey army. I didn't even know monkey army existed. So even though I'm a Gandhi scholar, because we don't look at that side of a study, right? A Gandhi scholar doesn't mean we know all things. That's why we have different expertise. And then she joined the youth movement, then Seva Dal, then she's secretary of Congress committee. I mean, 1941, she's still very young, what she's doing. The ages matters. I mean, if you look at these ages of these people. And she was appointed as one of the secretaries of the Congress Working Committee. And on 1947-48, and even later on, she helped with the women who were abducted during the India's Pakistan partition. So in praise of Madhula Sarabhai's Jyoti Sangh, and now I'm talking to you 1934, right? How old is she? Do the math. 1911 is her birth. How old is she? 19-year-old is your age, right? 19-year-old young lady. A muscular body and a great soul went ill together. They must not confound real health with crude physical development. Women's inferiority complex only prevented them from going out alone fearlessly even at night. No one on earth could suppress anyone else. Oneself was one's best friend or worst enemy. He would certainly like them to take physical exercise, but his point was that it was useless in the absence of moral courage. How many Jain virtues we see in it, how much Veera, the idea, the fearlessness that we don't need to be afraid of anyone. We need to walk. And she established in 1934, Jyoti Sangha, which still exists. And she is a whole organization training women to get jobs in 1934 that should be independent, because she knew that at times patriarchal social structures relegate women to a lower status, so they should be independent. Either her, when you see her photo, she's looking down or looking straight at you. And that straight is a very piercing eye. It's like, don't mess with me, that kind of straight. But or just really firmly looking down, like ascetic, like sadhvi, sage. Many Hindus and Sikhs argued that if Pakistan did not recover Hindu Sikh girls, India should also not help in recovery of Muslim girls. But for Madhula, the recovery of Muslim girls was important as that of a Hindu girl. Her main concern was that a girl should be restored where she rightly belonged. Think about that, those ideas. She was not thinking about Hindu Muslims. She was talking about women who were the victims of violence. She held that there cannot be any bargain in the recovery work of Hindu and Muslim women. This kind of approach was resented by many Hindus and Sikhs, but she had the support of Gandhi and Nehru, which enabled her to face the opposition. So she went on. She went on the front lines and did the work. So we can see that I just have 5 more minutes, 6 more minutes. Ahmedabad communal riots, she goes right in the middle and talks to both sides to not fight and work together and so on and so forth. She goes on. So my research only stays till 1948 or so. I don't go past that. So she has a fearless leadership. She recovery and rehabilitation of uprooted minorities and led their work of rehabilitating and reuniting abducted women with their families. These women were the victims of all forms of violence. When you read those scenes, it's so scary. Women are raped over and over again and then casted out from their homes. So it's so powerful to hear what she was trying to do, not just for women of any religion, but the women, period, the women who were the victims, regardless of their caste, color, religion. And that's the, I think, model she's presenting. And I see that Jainism, the idea of a Jaina who doesn't see any difference of Hindu, Jain, Buddhist, Sikh, is a humanistic, or not even humanist, it's the all sentient beings, not just humans. So what she does is rescue and restoration of abducted women. Through all these years, Mradula responded equally to Hindu and Muslim suffering in communal riots. From Gandhi and Nehru, she had learned not to discriminate, and also that it was a duty of the majority community to remove the fears and protect minorities. And then what she said, her diary entitled Gandhi in Bihar was found accidentally 33 years after. And she was writing her experiences, and this account stands as a significant historical document. This book comes out. Kamla Patel was also working with Madhula Sarabhai. She writes a memoir, Torn from the Roots, first in Gujarati, now it's translated into English. The women were victims of men who were perceived them as commodities. They were bought, sold, used for monetary, personal gratification, and then thrown away. This is exactly from our book. It was evident the case of numerous women who were passed on by men as gifts, while others sold off as commodities during riots. Women who were of no use to their abductors were thrown out like trash on the streets. When I read this, my body just shakes, right? Because my mother was in that road where they were leaving Pakistan to India. She was a young woman. And many young women were going to, and many were just disappeared. We couldn't find young men were disappeared, men were disappeared. So this is the time when she is on the ground and trying to help. And this is from the partition memoir. So these are the data for how many thousands of women were restored. So this is all taken from Aparna Basu, first Kamala Devi's book, and then Aparna Basu's book. So Kamala Devi's a first-hand account of what was happening. And it's all taken from what was the government document. So it's not made up figure, right? So there's another one, how many were Muslim women were, Hindus, Indian side and Pakistan side, how many women were. So again, if you want to see it, I can show you later. Sorry. So she was a real hero in my mind. Jawaharlal Nehru called her an extraordinary brave girl. Sarojini Naidu called her Joan of Arc, and Gandhi gave her highest praise to her. She had earned the nickname Pathan. All the families called her Pathan. Both the Pathans were the tall people dressed like, Punjabi clothes and fearless. She was just fearless as a child. Just talk back to anybody if they were doing something wrong. And in 1944, she stated, now 1947, we got independence, and Mradula Sarabhai was with him in 1944. So I take everything, look at historical and textual and data. The real advancement of women can come only through their own efforts, what he says. Perhaps he was looking at Mradula Sarabhai. at that time. And I looked at it. She was in the ashram at that time then, because she was doing what she was doing for women. Now I'm going to turn to the contemporary activist, teacher, Sadhvi Acharya, first Acharya in any Jain sect. Chandanaji, lovingly known as Thaima Maharaj. I just recently met her a week and a half ago in Pune, and she's an amazing person. And it's very fascinating for me. Here, there's an article called Thai Maharaj Rebel with a Cause by Anne Vallely, which was published maybe 3 years ago. And Madhula Sarabhai is also called a rebel. So it's interesting for me that how these two women, and I know Anne Vallely does not know anything about Madhula Sarabhai or that work. So it's that how they are seeking a rebelliousness in a different way. Pooja Acharya Sri Chandanaji, founder and inspiration behind Virayatan, which is a very large organization. And Professor Sharma can tell you more. She was awarded the prestigious Padma Shri in 2022 by the President of India for immense and compassionate work. What she sees religion as. So now I think want to see that how Madhula Sarabhai, is she a Jain, and how she's looking at the values, and she is not calling herself, I never see anywhere she says, I'm a Jain, nowhere. So we can say, oh, she's self-proclaimed. She's not talking about religion at all. She's talking about humanity, but she's born in a Jain family. So Virayatan's activities worldwide stem from the above profound thought that are underpinned by the motto of compassion in action. The seed was planted in 1970, and 50 years on, Virayatan has flourished into a gigantic tree of compassionate service to all in need. So we are celebrating the lives of many women. We need more names into it. I think more I read, more I find more names. They live the principles of nonviolence and care for all beings, examples of fearlessness. They're Veeras, Mahavira, or the Veera principle of Jainism. Examples of inner power represent dynamic role models for all human beings, not just for women, but all human beings. So blessed by their brave and compassionate leadership, so my work continues. This was a week and a half ago. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Howard. We are now open for any questions.
Meanwhile, everybody should write a question. Just write a question for you. You may ask, you may not ask. Just jot down a question. And I may call out. I think the same tradition in all traditions. And I asked that Taiji Maharaj that question, and then she didn't agree with that that tradition should not be followed in a way. No, the women should not, and the nuns, sadhvis should not bow down to a young monk. And she didn't go in details because her health is not too good. So, but she's all for, Jain values and Jain teachings and principles. But some of the ideas that have come is based on patriarchal systems, and even not only in Jain tradition, Buddhist tradition as well. The similar ideas happen, similar traditions happen. So although in Hinduism, there's a different setup. It's not a Sangha, like we don't have a separate women-led organizations, so they don't have to bow to anyone. There's no hierarchy in that way, generally. But since the Buddhist and Jain ideas of Sanghas were divided by two, sadhvis and sadhus, acharyas, and women were never were acharyas. So there's some, I asked that question to a scholar as well. What do you think about Acharya Chandana being an acharya? And they said, well, it's not the tradition. Our shastras don't say that, but what can we do? It's fine. She's doing good work. So there is no, the teachings, the texts don't have precedence for that, but you think about the values, the teachings. She's not compromising the values and teachings. She is rereading for the current times. Great question. Thank you. I hope that helped. Yeah. Yes. Do you have a microphone for everybody? No? नहीं कोई बात जोर से बोलो. Like a strong woman. That's a good question. So those, I think what I see even a little differently, the way you see it, they have everything. So they were more pressure not to leave because we are so used of comfort. The house that E.M. Standing describes, I mean, they have servants, they have food cooked, they have their, Rabindranath Tagore coming to their home. The British leaders are coming to, Gandhi's coming to their home, just very, very, Nehru coming to their home. They're just fancy and red carpets for them. And they were called about China. They ordered from England back then was $2,000. Even it's like mind-boggling. It's very hard to leave that. So I think it's not about the status. It's not about, it is the will. And I think sometimes, there were many householder women as well. There were some are not, they're married. There's the Nanavati's son is leading that. So they were not all didn't get married. So there were some married. She married twice. The Munshi, because her husband died and she married again. She was an essayist and Rajya Sabha, local Rajya Sabha assembly. So there is a variety of women. So not variety of background rather. So they're not just from one background. So it is all about what I said in the last two slides. It's about what Gandhis would say, what Mridula Sarabhai would say is about the courage. It's about making the decisions when we can do. Even my story is that, I had no idea that I would be able to do what I am trying to do now, to really resist and work and resist, not with fight, not with making enemies, but following your calling in a way that is possible. But you do get support, either be not necessarily financial support, moral support is required. That's why we need to build these moral communities that we support one another. And even if you're not supported, our strong will should guide us. Excellent. Yes. Yes, yeah, of course. Yes. Jain is, yeah. Yes. Right. And that's a interesting question because I don't want to bifurcate. Because Gandhi is always thinking in a new way, the way Acharya Chandanaji is thinking. He is reinterpreting ideas. So how he interpreting ahimsa? Last night I gave a talk on ahimsa. And he's seeing ahimsa not simply abstaining from violence. He's interpreting ahimsa addressing violence, confronting violence. That's why he takes a Jain idea of nonviolence, ahimsa, turns into an activist idea. That what Mahavira said, Lord Mahavira, do not injure, enslave, oppress, or kill any person or any being, any living being. Enslave, oppress. Killing comes the last. Why Gandhi is euthanizing? He says it's driven by ahimsa only. So no need to bifurcate. We need to build bridges. So now if you ask Jains, they're thinking about fasting to death. Santara, even though it's not called fasting to death, right? It's called taking the vow of Santara, right? Salekna, that Jains say, we don't want to harm any being. So I take this vow that I slowly give up food and don't even harm vegetables, right? So different ways of now they're thinking about using that in the hospital where terminally ill people, how to help them. So what is happening with any religion, like the Acharya Chandanaji is doing, Taiji Maharaj or Gandhi did, he was sort of a pioneer for all teachers from the hundreds of years, thousands of years, rereading the text, rereading that Vivekananda did, how he's rereading the Vedanta. You have to rethink what Gandhi, so I write about that. What's your name again? Vishal. So Tushar, I gave a talk at Oxford on simply that topic, on not only that euthanizing the calf, but also Gandhi had the rabid monkeys killed because they were biting children and they were biting the other animals as well. So I talk about the controversies surrounding Gandhi on animal ethics. Huh? Yeah. Yeah, but I think what you have to look at the principle. Yeah. Why is he doing that? We can always disagree. That's not a problem. And Jains can disagree. Anybody we can disagree with. Jains can disagree with Acharya Chandanaji, can disagree with Mullah Sarabhai. People will always disagree. But how do we want to move forward? And now the Jains are, look at America, we have over 22 endowed chairs of Jainism. They are really teaching in a way, very veganism. They're really activism for veganism. There's a rethinking about ahimsa, not simply as withdrawing from violence, but doing compassionate acts, right? That's ahimsa. So receding it is, so my goal is to, I always look at bridge building. Just Tirthankara is a bridge build, it's called the crossing over. How we can, and we don't have to agree with everything, but at this time, we don't have to bring it, oh, this is right or this is wrong. We can bring into conversation as a scholars, as a teachers and believers, and let it happen and let other people take it on it and think about more. Thank you for good question. Yes. That's a difficult question. I don't think I'm expert to answer that because that requires the going into inside why they're doing it. And so I rather, I may have opinion, but I don't want to share because it's very interesting. I just see it as a, what you call is anthropology of religion or looking at religion, right? Each tradition has a different ways of practicing and the practice change. But if a 10-year-old wants to become a monk, what's wrong with that? Why should it be a minimum age? Lord, their sage Shuka was 5 years old when he left the house. Sometimes 10 years old have a lot more wisdom than 50-year-olds. And they want to dedicate their life to the cause or the tradition or the values and the disciplines. I don't think we are here to impose any, it's not a voting rights. It's a personal right of that person, unless they're pressured. That's a different story, right? If they're voluntarily doing it, I think they should be allowed to do, because a 10-year-old has a wisdom, enough wisdom to take on. And they should be allowed to, like Buddhism, if they become 25 and change their mind, in Catholicism too, they should be allowed to change their minds and come back in the world. And I'm sure there is something like that. I don't know. But I think the 10-year-old should not be, age limit should not be part of it. Because sometimes the Jain tradition, Hindu tradition, our sanskaras also propel us to do things. It's not just simply this life is 10-year-old, but I might be coming from my last lifetime with those sanskaras that I want to be a nun, I want to be a sadhavi. So I think as long as they have a right, place to go and all this, I'm sure they do have very good traditions in place. Then I think traditionally they will say that they have good sanskaras, good karmas. They're coming to it their own will, not by pressure. Thank you. You guys get also my professor friends. You should also chime in and let's have a discussion. Yes, Abhi bolo. Yes.
Models Jain or they are also there is some for this philosophy, but they're not kind of engaging entirely across rather point how not what is happening, which is really abroad.
Do you have an answer? Yes. So I think it's what I call it convenient choices. It's whatever is convenient to us, we take that path. And because the real practice takes effort, takes work, takes commitment, even just simply being a vegetarian. I didn't know when I came to Europe as a student to Interfaith Conference that I had to sleep hungry one night. I didn't have any food to eat. I didn't realize that you have to sacrifice. India is so much vegetarian food, no problem. There, but at that time it was a test. My friend, all the other friends, young people, we were Interfaith Conference. They were started to eat meat. And I'm not a Jain, I'm Jain by virtue, maybe, or my respect Jain tradition. But I didn't eat meat ever before that, so I didn't want to start it. But then you have to sacrifice. And also, I think it's important to use logic, reasoning. What is important? Women have more violence in the bodies and men don't have. It's just, I don't understand. I don't think it is scientific, biologically can be proven. We all are site of violence all the time. The mind, body, thought are site of violence. Last night I gave a talk. We are by nature are violent beings. We have to work toward non-violence. It is a lot of not violence. When I say not necessarily you're hurting people, there is a unkindness, there is a competition, there is a, all this minute micro violence that we do. And those are more dangerous sometimes, So I think we all are constantly in my mind, we all are struggling that I shouldn't say anything unkind to me. Somebody's mad at me. I should watch my steps. So there's so many ideas. So that the first one is women's bodies as a site of more violence. I write about it. Jain teachers confronted that. So it's very important to think about the debates within Jainism. So look at the Jain debates yourself. They were fighting in 7th century Chotambara Jains to Digambara Jain. Oh, why do you say the woman that's more violent? So look at Jainism itself. It's rescuing itself from those debates. That's the one thing. You don't need to go defend. They are defending themselves. There's a very intelligent, very smart, very careful discourse on gender issues in Jainism. But people don't read those texts, what is happening. Big conversations, debates with Digambara Jain and Shvetambara Jain. And they said the women have right to freedom. It's not right that their bodies, because of their body, they don't have right to liberation in this women body. That's what I focus on in my writing, if you want to read a chapter. That the fact that tradition is self-reflexive, self-critical, discursive is very important to see. And that's not the point that, and the social versus, like I said, is convenient. For it's so much fun to be, cool and enjoy life. And, that's not just Jainism, that's the world, I would say. Thank you. The woman is nude, what you said? Yeah. Yeah. No, because women are not allowed to be nude also. Digambar tradition. Yes. Uh-huh. Can get pregnant, not do get pregnant. They can get pregnant. Bolo. When if they are not they're constantly pregnant. It's not possible. It's possible to nahi hai na. And even the babies, they are considered violent. This the whole, not only just the menstruation, they all details. I'm not going to say here. You should read my article. And this how violent the women's bodies are. So they should. No, women, period. So let's talk about menstruation not. They're not able to attain, they should not be nude. They're not, their bodies, because of female bodies, they cannot attain liberation, period. We can't go with the details here and there, but it won't be able to. That's what the Gambara, that's the main difference, that they cannot be. So, they go put the details afterwards, but in women's body, you cannot attain liberation. There are many other reasons too. That's the one reason you mentioned. There are many other reasons. Yeah. Any more? What do young women think about that question? What do you think about that question? Rules are set. But yeah. So, right, but the Jain tradition itself questions that. That's my, idea is that it's not the women are questioning. The men, the monks, the scholars are questioning that. Not just now after the feminist tradition, way before they were questioning that. So that is, to me, as a scholar and thinker, really gives hope, right? That we need to be allies and all. They're thinking about illogical nature of what is happening. What can I be? But that's why they were questioning. And it's a really serious debates about that. Hi. So I think all traditional teachings which are truth should be consistent. So what I will give you one way to explain this. So I think about quite a bit about this question. It can be beyond reason, but it cannot be opposing to reason. If you say God exists or not, you cannot prove or disprove because there's a faith. It can be beyond reason. I don't know. I agnostic, or some people will say, but the women should be treated differently than men. That's the reason. And the tradition says, then you go with reason, with the logic. And reason with the tradition, like our traditions are doing themselves for thousands of years, not just now. We see in the Mahabharata, I read the epics, I read the philosophy texts. There is just so much reasoning going on about the social issues that we see, where we are, where we were. Animal sacrifice were everywhere. Reasoning about that. That cannot be, but God can't be bloodthirsty. Yes, people will keep on doing it different, but we can reason about it. So there is a logic, there is a reasoning, and there is a transcend. What is Kevali? Can you explain to me? No, I can't. It's beyond reason. It's beyond my human comprehension. So there ideas can be beyond reason, but could not be contradicting reason. If we say all beings are divine, according to Hinduism, right? Every being is Atma. And then we discriminate people on the caste, color, or birth, then it's inconsistent. So then one can question. That's why these teachers could question. All these teachers, men teachers, women teachers, they were doing all this questioning because the tradition, they were reading it with reason. And so, yes, some things will be just the tradition tells you. If it is just fun, do it. But if you think that's something being harm, I questioned a lot. When I was maybe 14, 13, we used to go to this satsang where there was a curtain for the women's side in Muradabad. And men sat like, fine. I was young, I would sit in front of the curtain. And because I was young, I could do it. Now I grew old, 15, 16, they all wanted me to come in the back. Then I sat the Uncle Ji's. I said, Uncle Ji, isn't that we all brothers, sisters here? We're like daughters. I can't see with this your curtain. Why can't we want to see the Guru too? Can we just not this slowly come out? And so it takes time for those things. Those takes time for ideas. We can't be always constantly having up in arms about these. But the traditions are there for a long time, different times, different ideas. And now slowly we change and we improve, hopefully keeping the principles. Don't compromise the principles. The principles are like ahimsa as a principle is important. Now euthanasia as a principle, he's thinking about not harming the calf, not doing because I'm going to kill the cow. There's a difference, right? So one is on the basis of ahimsa, the other one could be something else, and we can still debate. Thank you. Hanji, you have a question? Well, I don't think it's a good question. It's my question. I don't think anyone can answer that question because it is beyond human comprehension. That's why. Because we can't imagine this world going to moksha anytime sooner, as we know. And we have not only just India, we have all these 7 billion people. So we shouldn't worry about what will happen to the whole world, right? We'll be lucky to have, some few people. We have only one person going to Kevalya, moksha here and there. It's very difficult path. So good question though, good thinking. You have a question? बाद में? I don't know. I have to really do so. Like I said, this is a very nascent project. It's a very new to me. The India scene is very foreign to me. So I'm learning about this a lot, and maybe you and I can talk. Maybe you can help me think about. So just want to correct though the one you said that Jainism influenced by for activism. I'm not saying that because Jainism did not have the activist models. They are reading in a culturally, religiously in a way that it is not against activism. So I think it's very important to differentiate the two. It's not like even Indian movements, Indian, any woman, Hindu, Sikh, or any other, we don't have those models where women went out and with the flags and protested. It was the first time in the history of India that Gandhi brought the women, and that's a historical fact, women out of the pardas to the public sphere. Once women were out, you cannot get back in. They were out. So regardless of we can talk about his feminist views, we can disagree with many things, many ideas, we can disagree with his ways of being, all on the table. But the way he brings women out of the domestic sphere, it is the very new thing for India, I mean, the whole Indian sphere, period, not just Hindu, Jain, Sikh, it's just the Indian people, even Muslim women he brings out. So I'm working on Muslim women as well, who took out their pardas and they want to be in the Indian independence struggle. So that's the point. Then when you see, and they all are looking at their religion, they didn't throw away their religions. They're just reading and not being religious in a way that we want to be. Like you were saying that culturally religious, they were not thinking about this culture show up or this. They're just doing there as a humanitarian work, being the humans, the best humans that on the solidarity of other humans. And each one of these traditions says, be compassionate, be kind, be helpful, be, all the virtues, and they are following that, minus all the dogmatic ideas. So. Well, I met Digambara women and Swami Pranamya ji. I sat with him and I talked with him. He was very kind. He's a very known Digambara Muni in Jaipur, happened to be there. And, he follows completely Digambara tradition and talked to a few people. And the women were the 80% in the room and the men were maybe 20 or even less percent. And they are not worried about this life. They think that they will live a devotional life this life, they will come next life. They're following the tradition. What's the hurry? We do devotion this life too. They may cook for him. They whole neighborhood cooks for Swami Ji and his devotees, and they go from the door to door, and they have some kind of rules that if they are met, then they eat in their house, and the woman is very happy that he's eating in their house. So there is a different definition of ways of being. I just say, I'm not going to argue with those women. That's not if they feel comfort in that, right, and they're doing choice willfully, fine. Because those in the other traditions is not so soon getting moksha anyways. How many are trying to do moksha anyways? Let's think about that. But it's thinking about sociologically and gender-based issues. Then these women have to think about themselves and what they want in life, right? If who am I to, if their change comes from within, right? The change comes from within. They have to say, what I witnessed, they were very happy, they were very joyful, they were completely going along with the teachings of the tradition. And they say that initially, tradition was always what you call now Digambara, that was a tradition. And it is an old tradition. So we are okay with that. There must be some wisdom to it. Can you give me some names?
I don't know.
There aren't any. So that's the point. That's my work is so interesting. That is, I don't see any. So if in America you're a Jain and you're doing some kind of, now it is different, right? It's not anybody can be activist. Anybody can raise a voice. I'm talking about the time when it was not allowed. It was not a tradition where you're, of course you can talk about activists now. Jainism is great, wonderful. And on the contrary, they're saying that we are not cowards. We participated in the Indian independence movement. So there's a very big, whenever I talk to my Jain friends and I ask them, he goes, no, ahimsa doesn't mean cowardice. So now is not a problem. Now is okay. Anybody can be, because we are living in a different time context. We're talking about then when it was, nobody talks about those women who were trailblazers, who were going out. They were all walks of life. There were some were married, some were unmarried, some were remarried, some were, all kinds of backgrounds and doing different things. But one of the main things that shared among all these is women's empowerment. Among all other things, they want women to be independent. They want women to have jobs. They want women to have skills, even if they don't want to have jobs. Should they need, they should be able to. And I can attest to that. It's very important. I see women being exploited because they cannot go to work or they don't have skills to go to work. So it's all the more important. You don't have to work if you don't want to. My mother used to say, you don't have to get a job, but if you are educated, you don't have to, but you have ability to get a job if you want to. And I think that's I see in these women in 1930s, that really, my hat's off to them. You get extra credit for asking question. He has a sheet that he's writing everybody's name. Excellent. Are you going to be a researcher? Yeah, I think you have a good question. And I think, yeah, and I think those questions are very important. Why this subject? Why now? And I'm a Gandhi scholar. That's what people say. I don't call myself a Gandhi student, but I come from Gandhi and I write about his celibacy and write about his brahmacharya vow. And then I became the Jain and Hindu endowed chair. And then I started to, always grew up among Jains and studied Jain philosophy, but not more on the ground. So since I was studying Gandhi and Indian independence, I wrote a paper on in my gender and Indian philosophy book on Jain women. And then I saw these two models only, the householder and the renouncer model. And even today, I think this is such a cutting edge that I'm glad it is recorded, that people know that I spoke first. So I think I wanted to show that the tradition is not just bifurcated. There is more spaces that women all long time have been, even as ascetic women, they're resisting patriarchy in some ways. They're not just simply taking whatever. So that's in that paper, which was written maybe 4 years ago. Now I'm taking one step forward. I know just not asceticism or sadhvi tradition, monastic tradition, they're going even activism, so, working for the cause of women themselves. And no Jain is, I didn't hear, oh, why are they doing it? Why this is not our religion? I didn't see that. I don't see, but there's not much awareness about it. But if you see those two slides that I share with the Jain women who in different industries and the next one who got Padma Vibhushan and Padma Shri, they're proud. So I think that the tradition is ready once the time is ready to that women come forward. So that was my interest because, and Mradula Sarabhai, my interest came from, and Dr. Pankaj Jain told me to share that. So my parents were told to leave their homes in Pakistan then in 3 hours notice. So my mother was young that time and had a 6 months old baby, my big brother, who is 18, 19 years older than me. We are 7 family. And so she told me the stories, my grandmother, and then how they walked and how they walked for days and they kafila, they called it kafila, the groups, and how they found, people will not give them enough food. They were, because, and she was hungry because her baby was nursing. Then so all kind of stories. And then the stories about violence against women. So I heard that how the water wells were filled with women's dead bodies. And generally Hindu and Sikh men did not want to accept the women whose bodies were violated, who were raped. Sometimes they got pregnant. Whose child are you bringing home? So she's on the ground. So it's almost like my parents are no longer alive because I'm the second youngest. So I didn't get to have them longer. And I just feel that what she would have endured, not only just the millions of women, or hundreds of thousands, many, many hundred thousands women were, how scared they would have been, both sides. And this woman, how she goes on the ground and tries to help, tries to reason with these people, bring awareness against, fighting against Muslim, Hindu, we do these wars and communal violence. So that really interested me. And then finding out that she belongs to Jain family, then even more. Now it has become a more dynamic project. Only in 7 weeks. This is only 7-week-old baby that I'm sharing. Says I have way to go. I don't know how it's going to shape up, whether it's going to come out. Then I'm seeing other activist women who are not even, they're Hindu activists, Muslim activists, Jain activists, all these who are working around Gandhi, but they're doing their own work. They're not just being associates of Gandhi, they're leading the movements. So that's my, and of course, then, when I met Sarabhai family, then it's really interesting to take it forward. Great question. Oh, wonderful. Great.
And from Jain family.
Yeah, great. Now your name will be here. Anji. Yeah, it's always, the traditions take time to change, where the social norms come into and where the religious ideas come into. Even though the women can attain freedom, there is a hierarchy. Generally, women were considered lower. It's a culturally too. It's not just Jain thing. It's about generally in culture, women have the lower status in many. I teach different religions. Generally speaking, the women, even the Akal Takht, the women are not allowed to be part of that, even though the Guru Nanak really was equality of men and women, right? It's not even thought about, not even considered that it is gender inequality. So I have a friend, Nikki Gunandar Kaur, she writes about the gender issues in feminist issues in Sikh tradition as well. So I think it's a cultural norms, it's not as religious norms. I don't think Lord Mahavira said anywhere women should be treated less in a way. I think it's just we are living in social structures. Then it could be from what I found very fascinating though, and I think that I have to share with you. In February, I went to Jaipur. So I spent some time with a group of sadhvis. The men were the servants they were the one who were caretakers of these women. This man, who was maybe 70, called the leader of it was a Sant Tulsi's tradition, said Maharaj to the Guru. not Sadhviji, not Maharaj. Even Taiji is called Maharaj. And I said, and he was taking care of all the details of these sadhvis who were like 18 staying there. And I said, what are you doing? He goes, I've been serving them for over 2 decades. And that's my job, to serve them. Maharajji is my, so see how disrupted their hierarchy is, right? So there is, you can't just say, when we come as academics, we just say, we look at one way things. Because I speak the language, I know the trends, and I'm coming from not only questioning, but also listening to what they're doing. So I see that their empowerment, I see that men are sitting on their feet. I see that men are taking care of them. And he was the one who 5:30 curfew, nobody wants to have water now, nobody will have anything, just completely, he was yelling up down the hallways, ho gaya, 5:30, khatam, ho gaya, it's just, but he was in charge of everything and completely dedicated to the tradition, women's tradition. So there is a lot nuances that we need to think about. Good question, though.
Great question.
Thank you, everyone. I'm sure you all enjoyed this interaction. I would now like to invite Professor Jain to give a small memento to Professor Howard.
Great question and great answer. Thank you.